In the pulse-pounding chambers of Europe's grandest courts, jesters, the unsung maestros of satire, took center stage, wielding wit sharper than any blade. As the crowd gasped, Geoffrey Hudson burst from a pie, his 18-inch stature hiding a towering pie. Amidst the golden halls, these entertainers, born from the fringes of society, wore their peculiarities as badges of honor, their every smirk and grimace echoing tales of audacity and danger. While jesters painted laughter on the faces of kings and queens, their own lives hung by a thread, a single misstep away from oblivion. In this high-stakes dance, jesters like Triboulet used humor as both shield and sword, navigating the treacherous waters of royal favor. In this world of glamour and deceit, jesters weren't mere performers, they were the heartbeat of the court, their tales a symphony of joy, peril, and unyielding resilience. Dive into the world where laughter could both empower and endanger. In the elaborate tapestry of medieval and Renaissance courts, jesters held a unique and enigmatic position. Often emerging from the most unexpected and marginalized quarters, their roles in the courts were sculpted by a blend of their distinct peculiarities and the era's taste for both amusement and satire. Yet it wasn't just physical stature that carved one's path to becoming a jester. Unique facial features, different from the conventional, often became the gateway to this profession. A jester's visage was their canvas, setting the stage for their performances, as every grimace, smirk, or raised eyebrow could elicit laughter or provoke thought. Beyond the external, the internal world of jesters was equally, if not more, important. A sharp wit or a natural talent for humor could elevate one to the esteemed position of a court jester. Triboulet, serving under Kings Louis XII and Francis I of France, was less celebrated for any physical oddity, but more for his quick repartee and incisive humor. Jesting wasn't just an individual profession. For some, it was a legacy. If a jester earned favor and became an indispensable part of a court, it wasn't unusual for their children, if they showcased a similar flair, to inherit the role, making jesting a family affair. In the glinting chandeliers and ornate halls of Europe's grandest courts, jesters danced, sang, and mimed, providing a gleeful reprieve from the doldrums of politics and courtly etiquette. But beyond the resplendent facades, many jesters lived lives shadowed by poverty, risk, and the ever-present danger of offending the wrong person. Their craft was a delicate one, where a single misplaced jest could result in their demise. For a moment, consider the ironic juxtaposition. Jesters, donning colorful garbs and distinctive hats adorned with bells, were symbols of joy and laughter, but many returned home to bleak lodgings. Poverty was a widespread companion to these artists. Unlike other members of the court, jesters were not typically bestowed with grand titles or vast estates. Their payment was inconsistent, and their social standing tenuous. While some jesters might have received favor and gifts from monarchs or nobles, these were often fleeting, contingent on the whims of their patrons. Historical records from England show contracts where jesters were promised stable wages, but these sums were modest. And if a jester fell out of favor, those financial supports could quickly vanish. Moreover, while jesters had lodgings within court, their quarters were far from the luxurious rooms of other courtiers. Many lived in simple, cramped spaces, a stark contrast to the grandeur they entertained within. Take the case of Triboulet, a jester in the French courts of Louis XII and Francis I. Renowned for his wit, he once offended the king with a particularly biting jest. Francis I, in a moment of anger, ordered Triboulet's execution. Aware of the razor-thin line he tread, Triboulet cleverly appealed for a day's grace to prepare himself and to decide on the method of his death. This quick thinking and the chance to see what Triboulet might choose amused the king, earning the jester a reprieve. Patch, a fool in the court of Elizabeth I, similarly towed the line of danger. On one occasion, he made a jest about the Queen's love for Robert Dudley, a topic of great sensitivity. Elizabeth I was not known for her leniency, and Patch's boldness could easily have led to dire consequences. Fortunately for him, his quip was received with amusement rather than anger. However, not all jesters were so fortunate. Archibald Armstrong, jester to James I of England and Charles I, was dismissed from court after making an ill-received jest about the king's policies. He ended up in poverty, highlighting the fragile thread by which jesters held their positions. The world of jesters was not one of unbridled joy. Behind each laugh and each carefully choreographed routine was the shadow of uncertainty. They were artists of the precarious, where each performance might be their last. Their lives remind us of the paradox of comedy, that behind each chuckle could be a tear, and behind each jest, a perilous truth. The jester's dance was one of brilliance and danger, a testament to the power of humor in the face of adversity. In the flamboyant courts of medieval Europe, jesters like Triboulet didn't just make kings laugh, they walked a tightrope where wit was their only balance. Once, while in the courts of Louis XII and Francis I, Triboulet retorted to the king's musings of his potential punishment, "By the king's decree, no man may harm me. If you hang me, you'll break your own command. But if you let me live, you'll have a fool to make you laugh and remind you of your mercy." A bold move that left the room in hushed anticipation. Across the channel, in the ever-dynamic court of Henry VIII, Will Sommers threw jests as frequently as the king changed wives. With a sly grin, he'd say, "The king changes his wives faster than a man changes his shirts, and yet, here I stand wearing the same old patched-up jests." Every chuckle he earned was a silent victory against the looming axe. In Poland, Stancik, a philosopher in jester's clothing, looked beyond mere amusement. At a raucous celebration after a military win, his melancholic expression prompted queries. He answered, "A jester's task is not just to amuse, but to hold a mirror to the court." Today, while we celebrate a minor win, we fail to see the looming shadows of tomorrow's loss. His insight, a chilling reminder of the deeper game at play. Lastly, there was Geoffrey Hudson, small in stature but immense in spirit. He often mused, "Though I stand but 3 apples high, the world I've seen is vast enough to dwarf any giant." In their jests, these men narrated tales of audacity, danger, and wit. Their words, a thrilling dance on the edge of fate. In the courts of medieval Europe, jesters were the embodiment of entertainment, often overshadowing the complexities of their personal lives. History seldom grants us a clear window into their familial bonds, yet through scattered documents and tales, a poignant narrative emerges. Many jesters, drawn from humble origins or even the fringes of society, were often severed from their families early on. Whether through choice, circumstance, or sheer necessity, they found themselves in the enthralling world of courts and nobles. Their commitment to entertain, often involving extensive travels with their patrons, made maintaining family ties challenging. There are accounts, though rare, of jesters marrying and having children. However, their unique position in courtly life made conventional family structures difficult. Their children, if they had any, rarely followed in their footsteps, perhaps due to the unpredictable nature of the jester's life. However, the court itself, in many ways, became a surrogate family. The bond between a jester and their patron often blurred the lines of mere servitude, evolving into deep, intricate relationships. Some jesters even found kinship amongst their fellow performers, forming tight-knit communities within the expansive palace walls. While the spotlight often missed the jester's personal sagas, behind the painted smiles and animated performances lay tales of love, loss, and longing as they navigated the delicate balance between their public personas and private lives. Yet, the world of jesters wasn't confined to those with physical differences or familial legacies. Individuals on the fringes of society, due to social, behavioral, or mental reasons, were frequently pulled into this realm. Their unique vantage point, born out of being societal outcasts, often provided them with an unmatched ability to critique societal norms under the guise of humor. At times, foreignness itself became a qualification. Individuals from distant lands or cultures brought with them a fresh perspective. Their unique customs, languages, and expressions added exotic flavors to their performances. Finally, the arts played a crucial role. Those blessed with talents in music, mime, or other performance arts often found a home in jesting. Their skills not only complemented but also often redefined the traditional image of a jester. Despite their revered status, jesters also lived on the edge. Their uniqueness, which was their strength, also isolated them, marking them as other in the society they entertained. Within the courtly walls, they enjoyed certain liberties, speaking truths that others wouldn't dare to. Yet, this freedom came with its own set of vulnerabilities. In the intricate dance of court politics and societal expectations, jesters balanced on the tightrope of adoration and peril. In the sprawling tapestry of history, jesters, with their colorful costumes and whimsical antics, are often perceived as the light-hearted, jesting souls of the royal court. However, beneath the jovial exterior lay an underbelly of risk. Among their numerous roles, one of the most perilous was delivering unwelcome news, especially to opposing forces or their own monarchs. This daunting task showcased the precarious position jesters occupied, one where their lives hung in the balance with each word they uttered. As the sun rose on a chilly morning, the jester would be dispatched, crossing hostile terrains and enemy lines, bearing the weight of news that could sway the course of battles and the fate of nations. The choice of a jester for such a task was deliberate. The rationale? Their comical demeanor could perhaps soften the blow of the news, making it more palatable to the recipient. But history is peppered with instances where this strategy met with tragic outcomes. Take the legendary tale of Beau Grum, a jester in the court of a Scandinavian king. Tasked with delivering news of a significant loss in battle to a neighboring kingdom, Beau Grum embellished the tragic tidings with a jest, hoping to temper the bitterness of the news. Instead, the rival king, already incensed by the defeat, saw this as mockery. Beau Grum was promptly executed, a sobering reminder of the risks jesters took in their roles. In another instance, Felipe the Fool, a Spanish jester, was dispatched to convey to the English court Spain's intent to launch the Armada. The playful, almost dismissive manner in which he delivered the message led to an underestimation of the Spanish threat. However, upon his return to Spain and the eventual failure of the Armada, Felipe bore the brunt of the Spanish king's wrath for not having conveyed the gravity of the situation and was exiled. The stories also abound with mythological embellishments. Whispered tales from Eastern Europe speak of jesters literally being shot out of cannons towards enemy lines to deliver messages. Whether this dramatic method ever truly occurred is debatable, but the very notion underscores the life-threatening dangers jesters faced. The perils didn't end once the message was delivered. Jesters also ran the risk of facing their monarch's wrath if the news was particularly unwelcome, or if they were suspected of tampering with the message for their amusement. Jean Le Fou, a jester in the French court, once relayed a message containing bad news with a comedic twist, aiming to alleviate the gravity of the situation. Instead, the king, irate and feeling mocked during a crisis, had Jean imprisoned. These tales highlight the tightrope jesters walked. Their roles were not just about entertainment, they were also about diplomacy, strategy, and at times, survival. Tasked with delivering news that could earn them enemies on both sides, jesters showcased incredible bravery, wit, and resilience. Their stories, while filled with laughter, are also tinged with the somber reality of their precarious positions, reminding us that humor, even in history, comes at a cost. The 12th century marked the beginning of the High Middle Ages. Europe was slowly waking from the slumber of the Dark Ages, with monumental cathedrals piercing the skies and the chivalric code guiding the knights. Amidst this cultural revival, jesters began to find their niche in royal courts, becoming entertainers and confidants to kings and nobles. One of the most crucial events of this era was the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215. This significant document attempted to balance power, ensuring that the English monarch wasn't absolute. As King John of England and his barons engaged in intense political negotiations, jesters played an indispensable role in lightening the atmosphere. They often served as the voice of the common man, daring to mock the elite in ways no other court member could. Such jesters served as mirrors, highlighting the follies and tensions of their age. As the 13th century gave way to the 14th, Europe faced two colossal challenges. The Black Death, a deadly plague, consumed almost a third of the continent's population. Simultaneously, the 100 Years' War, primarily between England and France, raged on, reshaping boundaries and monarchies. Amidst these calamities, the jesters played dual roles. In the devastated towns and villages, their humor provided much-needed solace to a population grappling with death and despair. On the battlefields, especially during significant events like the Siege of Orleans in 1429, jesters danced and sang, raising the spirits of soldiers. As Joan of Arc led French troops against the English, jesters reminded warriors of the joys of life even in the shadow of death. By the 15th century, the winds of the Renaissance began to blow across Europe. This era of rebirth and rediscovery was characterized by exploration, art, and science. Great figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo, and Columbus emerged, pushing the boundaries of knowledge and geography. Yet in this age of enlightenment, jesters didn't fade into obscurity, they evolved. Nowhere was this more evident than in the Italian courts. As states like Florence became centers of art and learning, jesters adapted to their new environment. Their humor became more sophisticated, biting, and satirical, often commenting on the socio-political dynamics of their time. A memorable anecdote comes from the court of Lorenzo de' Medici, the great patron of Renaissance arts. A jester once humorously juxtaposed the Medici family's rise in Florence to Columbus's voyages, suggesting both ventured into uncharted territories. This blending of contemporary events with humor highlighted how jesters remained relevant even in changing times. As the Renaissance waned, the 17th century heralded the Baroque era. Everything became grander, more ornate, and dramatic. In England, Shakespeare's plays drew crowds, while in France, Louis XIV's opulent Versailles set new standards for royal extravagance. Jesters found a new stage during this period. No longer just individual performers, they began participating in elaborate court performances. They became part of more organized comedic troupes, using their wit and humor to comment on the changing societal norms. However, as the 18th century dawned, the Age of Enlightenment began prioritizing reason, science, and intellectual inquiry over tradition. Figures like Voltaire and Rousseau became the new voices of satire and critique. Jesters, with their traditional garbs and methods, began to seem like relics of a bygone age. Yet their legacy wasn't to be forgotten. The jesters had sowed the seeds of satire, critique, and free speech, which would later bloom in the works of writers, playwrights, and comedians of subsequent ages. They might have faded from royal courts, but their spirit remained, reminding society always to question, laugh, and reflect. In conclusion, the narrative of the jester isn't just about humor or entertainment. It's a reflection of European society's evolution over centuries. Through their eyes, one can witness the rise and fall of empires, the despair of plagues, the fervor of wars, and the brilliance of renaissances. They are a testament to the enduring human spirit, always finding a reason to smile amidst adversity. If this narrative resonated with you, do support us. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe. Thank you for staying with us to the end. See you in the next video on Plaid Chronicles.